The hill is growing. Dust has nature began to fall. Crop circles in carpet, sinking feeling.
There we are.
That was the best
Beautiful.
intro music of any podcast ever. That was great.
Sweet.
That was great. I think we need a round of applause for that one. Oh, wow. It's our first podcast.
That was weird.
First episode.
Weird.
I think in like 1,000 years when the extraterrestrials come down to Earth, they're going to listen to this and they're going to understand what planet Earth was all about. So that's pretty much the whole point of this podcast.
I'm really worried about Teresa.
We'll be all right.
Thank you guys for the opportunity to be weird.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, John, what are we doing here?
So this is a podcast, and this came about from, well, I guess we should talk about it a little bit, but we eventually want to bring Ben onto the show. But this came out of a contest that IMM is running this week, and we were asked to come up with something to present for tomorrow. And this is something that we've been thinking about for quite a long time, but
we're going to win.
We're going to win. Yeah, obviously.
Bam.
Yeah. Do you guys want to talk about what Ben's up to, maybe? We'll start with that. What are they doing? What is IMM doing this week?
Well, Ben Spizzuko and Nina Navazio and a number of other students saw an opportunity. I think it was just last spring after we went into quarantine that, they were missing the social experiences that they had in IMM. They were missing that connection. And they found that after the semester was over, it wasn't quite enough for them to, to anticipate the whole summer kind of without any IMM-ness. So what they did was they invented a thing called IMMovation. So like innovation, except IMM, spelling with IMM. And their idea was to do IMM style collaborative projects that were creative and kept them engaged in their practice throughout the summer. So the first one was in May and June, and then I think they did another one in August and September, and now this is the third one. So so hats off to them for seeing an opportunity and really like taking an entrepreneurial approach about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was perfect. It was exactly what we need to get this started. And so this is going to be a weekly podcast. We're going to bring in a lot of alums, a lot of current students. We talk about projects that folks are working on, probably some tours. What else are we going to do?
Show off stuff. That's cool.
Stuff. Yeah. Yep. So I'm
and have fun. And it's not going to be real formal. It's going to be trying to just pull in a lot of people and mix up ideas and show what we're doing.
Yeah. And this is the first time I've actually ever had to host a podcast. It's so we have a lot of learning to do for sure. But we're going to try some new things. We're probably going to have to change things up as we go. But I think we're going to start at least the first part of this segment by talking about what we've been working on over the last week, 2 or 3. What's going on? Yeah. Warren, should we start with you? What are you working on?
Well, we always are asking our students, what are you working on? And now it's our turn. Yeah. So, and we want to win this contest. The bad news, John, is the stuff I'm working on is really boring. I mean, long, but it's what I'm working on. So I was asked to write an article for a journal, so I made a proposal, and it's a formal kind of international thing. And I'm also going to do a talk in Switzerland, which I'm very excited about if I get my vaccine, on ethics and children's interactive media. So you ask yourself, what is that? Well, as you guys who know me know, I like to take very practical things. I don't like to delve into theory too much. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the top 100 apps for children in iTunes right now, and I'm looking at every one, and I'm documenting the kind of manipulative digital engineering that goes on in those, and I'm classifying them, and I'm not making judgments. I'm basically saying what's going on. And so you probably have heard of My Little Pony.
Yeah.
And so here's the firewall in My Little Pony. And I've been playing so, you know, and what the deal with this is, and this overlaps with my work with Fred Rogers and the Rogers Center, is that I believe, and you know, a lot of people who work with children believe, that there is a sacred space between the child and the screen, and that if there's any sort of manipulation for a reason other than to educate and entertain and delight, if there's another agenda, like how about some money, or let's introduce this new Netflix series, right? There's a lot of sort of motives besides let's make something cool. I want to just identify those, and I'm not trying to be judgmental and say they're good or bad, because many times there are things like My Little Pony that's got a paywall or whatever is pretty good. There's a lot of good content, and they do a good job at defining the commercial content from the other stuff. But sadly, there's a lot of stuff that isn't. It's kind of like the Wild West. And so I'm trying to help map out this new developing space so that we can get good people, good ideas in front of more children. That's what I'm doing. It's kind of a yawner, John and Teresa.
No.
No, it's fascinating and important.
That's amazing.
I admire your work with kids media, and it's super important right now when kids are, you know, learning online and spending so much time online.
Yeah. And I also look at a lot of really awesome stuff, and I try to show stuff in class, you know, the stuff from Touch Press, you know, the periodic table, where you can actually, you know, there is magic in this medium, right? And, you know, and I'm been looking at stuff on the Oculus, and it is a new vehicle that we can use to not just to make money, but to really put you back in a historical period, or give you a tool set where you can create in new ways. And so it's really a you know, this is a wonderful time. It's why I love our major so much.
Yeah, that's incredible. I feel like I should go next because Teresa's, yours is amazing, and mine is the honor. I'm gonna.
Oh, come on!
You're out there changing the
That's
world.
not true.
Are you gonna show your clock?
No. That's. I'm done with that one. Although the funny thing is, you know, I'm still getting a lot of emails from people sending me their versions of the clock, and there's one guy actually selling them now on eBay or on Etsy, which is kind of interesting. Don't know what I feel about it. Yeah, but it's I guess it's open source. I don't know. I really just haven't thought about it that much. So he's taking my software, making the clocks, and then selling them, which I guess is fine, right? I don't know. I'm supposed to have an opinion about this, so I don't.
Well, John, I can just say.
But they don't even know what the clocks are. Hold on, I'm listening.
Yeah, well, while you're getting that, there's a lot of stuff on YouTube of people making stuff, woodworkers, and doing really awesome stuff, right? But what John's doing is he's integrating code into this. You know, it's sort of the intersection, and he's got a skill set that comes from you know, way back at NYU's ITP program that a lot of people don't have, and so it's kind of like This Old House meets Star Wars. You know, it's really kind of cool, and nobody else has. It's quite like a John Kipoff. So we're really lucky to have you in our program, and you know that. So you know, my advice to our students is definitely spend time with John.
Oh yeah. Oh yep. No, we're going to talk about that in a little bit, like our approach to IMM. But this week, what am I working on? A lot of small projects, a lot of plate spinning. The big one that I'm working on is I'm making an online course on Teachable. It's this online platform it's changed how I think about higher education and online education immensely. Like I love this platform. So I've just been feeding this platform content, and I'm starting to engage with the students on that platform. And it's very different than an undergrad audience. I'll put it that way. And I want to eventually talk more about that. But what I'm actually working on this week, a lot of small projects. I work for, do a lot of work for SJC Custom Drums. I'm just going to go solo here so you can see the shop. So I'm doing a lot of badges, and last night they need these customized spacers. So we're working through different materials and trying to figure out how that's going to work. I did a lot of stuff weirdly enough, for Google this week on some product development with the laser and things like that. But a lot of it is just research, and the output might not be super fancy, but to even get here sometimes takes a couple of weeks of just rapid iteration and just a lot of research and a lot of time spent on forums and a lot of Amazon boxes with weird materials coming in. So that's honestly what I've been working on this week. It's just a lot of stuff with Teachable and just doing orders. Like I work for a sign company, so we're working on some signage, and all that goes to pay for everything that you see behind me, right? And that helps to fund all my research, basically. But that's what I love to do. I love to just tinker and play with materials, and even if you're only going to get like a weird gasket bracket thing, but I know this does exactly what it needs to do. So I get a kick out of that. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. All right, Teresa.
You keep us. Oh, thank you, John. It's so fascinating to see you evolve over many years, see your work evolve, and the current iteration is so neat. Just what you've built in a short time is really very impressive.
It's just the coolest time to be alive. Like if I could imagine if I was a college student, we didn't have this stuff. I know I'm starting to sound like I'm ancient, but we didn't have this stuff when we went to college. Like we didn't have access to these kinds of resources. We couldn't even pull together a podcast if I was in college the way we're doing now with just like a little tiny bit of research. We have all the tools to do pretty much anything we want to do.
John,
wasting it on gaskets.
one of my heroes, which is one of your talking points, is Carl Sagan. And he made a point that there's been something like 800 generations of human beings on the earth.
Oh, wow.
Since we were in caves and so on. And only the last 200, and these numbers are probably wrong, only the last 200 could use language. And of all of these 800 generations, it's ours. Ours is the only one. So we were lucky enough to be born in the window between knowing and unknowing and knowing. And so just think about what, I'm the oldest. So, what I've seen in my time on our blue marble, and, we've seen the internet, we've seen, all these things happen. And really the iPhone is only 12 years old, the touchscreen medium, Oculus is just, all these things are happening. And so, John, what you've done is you've actually made it so, using stuff, and sometimes it's low tech, it's like cardboard, because, it's, you can order stuff on Amazon and get it the next day to make the thing and get stuff to your clients, and, use the technology like we're using right now to connect ideas. And so you can actually make a living in a really cool place, like, along the Delaware River in a shop. So
in a one-car garage. Yeah. And it was interesting too, just seeing how the tools evolve. So I know we are all professors of the senior thesis class this year, and they use Trello, right? And so for the drum company, for SJC Custom Drums, they use Trello for everything in exactly the way we ask our students to do this. And so maybe I'll overlay. No, I probably shouldn't. It's probably not allowed. But we literally have the columns, and every time new orders come in, you go from one column, and it's just so interesting to see this ecosystem of stuff just working together. And it evolves so quickly, but somehow the machine keeps running. It's unbelievable. Yeah, I don't know. It's just fascinating.
Well, and that's why we want our students all to know how to use Trello and Basecamp and tools like that, so that you can jump into a collaborative workspace and hit the ground running for wherever you end up.
Yeah. There is a little bit of fear. Like, for instance, I really hope this is recording right now. I'm trying all these new tools. I'm sending things out. I'm like, I hope this works. I'm in perpetual state of like, oh gosh, I hope nothing terrible happens, because I feel like there's so much rapid change. We don't really 100% know what we're doing, but we're just doing the best we can with the tools at our disposal, and they come quickly. Like even this vaccine's like largely untested. We're like, hope it works. It's like just like this podcast recording thing that we're trying. Yeah, and we just need.
We have to be brave.
That. Where I don't remember having to do that when I was younger so much. Like it seemed to be, even when I was like a web developer, we were learning PHP. PHP didn't change for 10 years at all. Like it was very stable technology, and the front end changed a little bit. But now with the Oculus and everything else, and what I'm doing in this shop with the laser, everything changes so much. And I feel like my job is just like filtering out the noise and trying to find the opportunities that exist in all of this like Morpheus cloud, and trying to cobble it all together like a weird cyber plumber or something like that to make things work. I don't know. It feels different to be a student, I would imagine, today than it did 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago. There's so much more expected of students. I would imagine it's a lot of pressure. I remember when I was a web developer, especially, I was learning as the internet was being developed. So I wasn't very good, but the rest of the world wasn't very good either. So I was just as good as the best person because I grew up with that technology. Coming in now, students oftentimes, when we see like video games and we see this augmented reality and we see whatever it is that they're into, those disciplines are already up here and they're starting here. And that has to be, it has to be intimidating. And maybe it must be tough to get motivated in some ways because you're not at the top. You're just like, all you see is like the climb and the grit that's needed to get that high. But I don't know if that's, what do you guys think about any of that? Think that's true? Or is it the opposite?
It's funny because Sergey Brin, one of the co-founders of Google, said that exact same thing when he was asked about like, how did you get to where you are? And he said, well, I used to program a Commodore 64 BASIC in my basement for hours, and my parents let me do it. And he worried about kids today because you put something on YouTube. Used to be you compete with your senior class. Like I play my trumpet, right? I was the best trumpet player at St. Joseph High School in Michigan. I actually was. Okay. Okay. Yeah. First chair, man. First chair. But with today, you put something on social media, you're compared with a million other people. Right. And it's easy to feel like I am nothing. I'm a grain of dust in this universe. And yeah, it's a good point. It's a whole new kind of way. How do I count? How do I fit into this? And I don't think we really have an answer to that. I think that's a different major perhaps. But it's one thing for sure is that if you have a good skill set, if you build a good foundation of skills, and that includes writing and reading, but also like different kinds of code, and know how to use tools, and then go into it with an attitude. And all my students know my favorite word is absolutely, that you lie your way through things. If someone says, can you get this video edited by tomorrow? You say, absolutely. And then you hang up and you go, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And then that's why God invented the night. You see? Fear and terror gets you through it.
Every task takes just as long as you have to be completed. I said that probably not the most elegant way, but that's true.
But deadline, it is a deadline business. Yeah. And that's why, we always give at our conference, we give out these fuzzy vests because we say, look, snuggle up, huddle up, it's going to be late. It's going to be late. We're going to get through this. And it's kind of a message to say, we're in a business of deadlines, and we all know it's hard and there's a lot of failure, but we'll get through it. We're going to get through it. And what's cool is when it works, it is magic. I mean, you get these feelings of satisfaction. Like I just published an article that it's going to be read like everywhere, or I just made this the coolest thing in the world and I can show it on YouTube. And I know I know it's the coolest thing. And so, yeah, so that's the good news. So
Speaking
good
of the
news.
coolest thing, Teresa's working on 2 coolest things. I don't know between the
Yeah,
book
and unlike John and I,
glove.
hers isn't boring.
No, it's not. That's why we started with us. Yeah.
You're so sweet. Well, and I'll just say that back when I was a college student, the coolest thing to be was a conductor. That was all I wanted to do in college. And this project has sort of brought me full circle, because back then electronic music was in its infancy and was a little bit raw and not so polished. And nowadays, as you guys have been saying, electronic music is really, spectacularly sophisticated. And I've been very fortunate to be able to work with this new device. It was a gift from some faculty at Peabody Conservatory. They had personal connections with Imogen Heap and got some advanced copies of these Imogen's Mimu gloves to my studio. So over break, I've been enjoying messing around with them. They're sensor gloves, as I don't know if any of you have seen Imogen Heap give the demos of these on various platforms. But anyway, they're brand new. And so let me see if I can share my screen and show you what the software looks like. Let's see, does this work? Uh-oh, I cannot share my screen. I need to do this on Chrome in order to share my screen. Well, maybe I can, I'll just talk through it real quick. Basically, there's sensors all knitted through the gloves, running along the backs of the fingers, and orientation sensors in this electronics box here. And so they have this software called Glover that allows you to map all the sensors to different outputs and different postures. So the system can recognize when I make a sort of what they call a puppet hand gesture, or a fist, or an open hand gesture, or a point, or a pinch. All of these different gestures are recognizable and trainable, and then you can map them to whatever MIDI output you want. So I was doing this at the very beginning of the podcast. I used one of Imogen Heap's famous songs, and I just mapped it so that when my hand is straight vertical, or even a little bit tilted to sort of the convex side, I can speed up the pitch up to about 1.5 times the original tempo. And then when I tilt my hand all the way the other way, I can get the speed to go way down. So I was messing around with almost like putting speed, almost conducting with my left hand here, this original recording. So let me just show you a little bit, just see how it works. So if I hold my hand about here, I should get the original. Here's the original song at original speed. You can hear it. And now I'm going to slowly crank up the speed. For those of you who know the piece. So we're now at about 1.5 times. And now I'm going to turn it down to about, now when I'm about half, just under. We're starting to get some audio artifacts because it's getting a little gritty. The audio is getting stretched. And now I can play with it. So now when I want to emphasize the movement, I go up. And then when I slow it down, when I hang and linger on something, I slow it down. And then I can kind of dance and play with it. I'll stop it there. So I say it's coming full circle because it's a little bit like conducting a recording, and it's just baby steps. But little by little, my plan is to develop some software for the conductor at Peabody Conservatory to help her teach conducting to her graduate students. That's the ultimate plan of the project. So thank you for the opportunity to demo it.
Teresa, if you can send me some some footage, I can overlay it in post.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think
I'll send you a screenshot.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say, because we want to win.
Yeah.
Hey, oh, by the way, John and Teresa, just in case, we really want to cinch this, okay? I have something that's not boring. I was flying my drone the other day. I'll send you the footage. And I flew it right over a real live alligator. Now that's going to win.
Right.
And it was so cool. And the alligator's like looking at the drone, like, is that a dragonfly or whatever? And then it just jumped. It was so cool.
We'll
But
have to
anyway,
use that for the cover shot, the thumbnail for the podcast for sure for this episode. Yeah, and we need a title too. But Teresa, we could put Teresa's glove on the alligator. That would be really have a collaboration effort here. So Teresa, so you've been working on this, and you also does this have anything to do with your book, or is that a completely separate thing? Are these two concepts related?
They are somewhat related in the sense. So the book I'm working on is related to my IMM course, Interactive Music Programming, and so I am using a Max Patch here to route the audio signals. So the book is, just to give it in a nutshell, is using Max and interactive creative coding techniques to teach the fundamentals of music theory. That's the basic idea. Yeah. So yes, in a way it is related. You know, the Max Patch can be used for many, many different kinds of interactive designs, and music theory is one application that I think is important and worth exploring. So that's why I'm dumping a lot of time into it.
Yeah. I think when I first met you, Teresa, you were doing things I'd never seen before. It was stuff just never seen. It was like hocus pocus, like magic stuff. And I think that a lot of our students are attracted to the music aspect of IMM because it's different than many other programs out there. And largely it's because of you. You just started a whole minor also around this concept, which is amazing. Yeah. Gosh, I could be 20 years old again. Yeah. I would do things a little differently, I think. Yeah, and music. I was going to go into music, and then I didn't. Had there been a program like what you've started, I probably would have gone that direction for sure.
Well, in working with a lot of designers, one of my favorites is Mark Schlichting, who did the Living Books and started this company called Broderbund, and he says your ears don't blink. Mm-hmm. And so, there's basically, when you're in most forms of interactive media, it's mostly visual and mostly audio, and everyone forgets about the audio. And it's the difference between the good stuff and the amazing stuff in most games. And if you think about it, it is in the audio and how you can, you exploit that sense, and the real designers know how to use that. So the work that we're so lucky to have somebody with Teresa's expertise in our program working side by side with the graphic arts and with, that's what's cool about our majors. We've kind of, it really, in the truest sense of the form, in my opinion, is a liberal arts kind of rooted in the future.
Yeah. So,
with real skills, right? So like music is a stealth back channel to the emotions, which you can leverage really nicely if you know how, right? If you know what the keys are to unlock those emotional triggers. And the same thing with animation and with games, right? There are all different skill sets that our students are developing that help them be really expert in manipulating the emotions of the users and audiences that
yeah, and the fact that our students are sort of fearless and says, I know how to, like, we've never used this interface we're using right now, and we'll make it work, we'll figure it out. And that's the kind of attitude that you need to make it. And that's what employers are just starved for, is people who go, I'll figure it out, I can do it. And it just doesn't come overnight. It comes after a lot of struggle and figuring things out and playing with different interfaces and all that stuff. So,
When I first got to IMM, one of my favorite projects, you remember Chad's drone project. Drones were brand new. Like, you couldn't get a Mavic Mini for, under $500. Like, it just didn't exist. And what he had done, he had a drone, a headset, and he was able to connect the two things where he was able to think of the idea of the drone going up and the drone would rise. And he could think of the idea of it going left and it would go left or right, and based on his brainwave. So we would be sitting in the lab and be like, Chad, make it land on the table over there. And he'd like think about it. It would go all the way up, and it would eventually go on the table or somewhere close to the table. And like that's the kind of thing that excites me about the program. Is you don't see that anywhere else. At least not in my.
I got them. So this is the old mini.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so John, I saw this thing like 5 years ago at CES where this guy took Google Cardboard, hooked it up to a paper airplane with 2 cameras on it, 1 camera for each eyeball, and you could actually it ran on a 1 AAA battery, and so it was really small. And his idea is he wanted to simulate a fly, and so that if you turn your head this way. You put your smartphone in it, right? So it uses the accelerometers in your phone. So when you turn your head, the drone would actually turn.
Oh yeah,
and
that's
so
cool.
You saw what the fly saw as you flew around your backyard with this paper airplane for less than $50. It never went anywhere. Totally, the guy lost a lot of money, bleeding edge. But what a concept, to hardwire basically your head and your eyes with the thing that flies. And that's kind of not that new of an idea, but it's pretty cool. And that's why I think I love drones so much, is like a sense of freedom. And I think one of the questions is how do you cope and how do you survive, and what's your how's your way of dealing with stress? And I've turned into a drone addict. I mean, I'm a certified. I need to go to droneaholics or something.
Anonymous.
Yeah. It's like
it's only drone anonymous because the government knows who's flying what drones. You can never be anonymous.
Yeah, my daughter finally said, "Dad, you need to stop."
Yeah, Brett's got this sickness too. Yeah,
it's so cool. It's so cool.
I'm going to be the timekeeper. We didn't even get to our topic today, but I think for our first episode, that's okay. We're going to try to wrap things up, and I think at least to start wrapping things up by what have you been reading, watching this week? Anything noteworthy that you've been paying attention to on YouTube or wherever? Anything?
Can I say Schitt's Creek?
I don't even know what
Sure.
that is.
I love that show.
Sure.
It's not a dirty word. It's SCH.
Oh, of course. No, we wouldn't allow that.
This is unlike a lot of our students, this is not a racy bit of content that we're putting out there. But no, I just love I love the if you watch behind the scenes of Schitt's Creek, it's Eugene Levy and Daniel Levy, and it's such an important show on a cultural level as well as just it's fun. It's good, well crafted, well thought out, the good narrative. And I like that just an IMM touch. When they start each episode, they start with quiet, and you hear that it's like a pan of this old hotel, and they let it unfold. And I think that rather than push stuff at you. But there's a documentary, and that's what I've been watching. But I also watch, I've been going down the YouTube rabbit hole, and I'm really into trumpet tutorials and there's so many good players out there that you can learn from.
I finally got the YouTube Premium, so there's no ads, which hasn't helped my YouTube habits because now there's no ads, and it's just like it's nice. Yeah, it's very. Yeah. And one of the reasons we got it too for school, like I hate when I show a class a YouTube clip and I have to wait till 20 people listen for an ad. It's just like such a waste of time. It's a waste of their time, and it always bothered me. So, yeah. Teresa,
you're right.
Yeah, anyhow. Teresa, what are you watching? Reading?
Well, it's funny how our attentions go in different directions, but I think with all the tumultuousness of the last few weeks and in a way the stress of our nation's intensity, that I think I'll just leave it there. I found myself going back to classical music. I guess that's the sort of, classical wonk in me, the nerd in me. But, I went back to Beethoven and Sibelius. I also, went to YouTube, but I was watching the Rachmaninoff Second Piano Concerto and going back to the Beethoven Late String Quartets just for solace. I think, that's for me a kind of a sacred space, classical music, and I go back to the well when I need a recharge. So that's where I went the last couple of weeks. Of course, I watch TV too, but but I found a lot of peace in some of the older art forms that keep me connected to something like very fundamental about what it is to be human.
Incredible. I've been the Josh Fishburne, who we will have on this podcast often, very soon, maybe next week, who knows. He wrote us an email, and so anyhow, I've been at this conference called Learning to Teach Creative Technologies Remotely, and it's a virtual symposium hosted by the Integrated Digital Media Department at NYU. And so you get like Tega Brain, you get all these crazy, you get all the rock stars of creative media and creative coding all in the same place, teaching, sharing information on how they teach remotely. And I learned so much. And it's also just really nice to be in company with people that are like-minded. You know what I mean? So it's this world, like the creative coding world, is actually pretty small when you think about it. When you see all 200 people in the room, and you're like, that's basically it. Like, these are all the heroes all in one spot. And they had some really interesting software we got to mess around with, and there's all different things. My head's buzzing, and anyhow, it's important to keep learning. I think that's true for
and I think a good point is find your heroes, and find your tribe and find your connections, and then develop your voice in that. And I think that's great, John, that you're using that. I think that's what's happened in the pandemic, is that so many people normally would never get together are sharing ideas, and it's really sort of a interesting time of, in a way, it could really be a spark for culture and innovation that we won't see for a few years, but that's really interesting.
I do every Saturday for 2 hours. I'm on a Zoom call with people from all over the world, makers from all over the world, Australia, like India, everywhere, and same time, same place. And there's about, I guess, 16 of us that started, and there's a little bit, it revolves. And for me, I feel so refreshed after every Zoom call. It's like it's 2 hours, but it goes by quickly, and you learn a lot. But really, just having that sense of community in the outside world, there's people in New Jersey, in this area, but to be able to talk with people from all over the world about these kinds of things, and we always mail each other gifts and things like that, and there's lots of jokes around the Discord server. And so that community is so important to keep motivated, I think. At least it is for me. Otherwise, it all starts to feel like work. You know what I mean? And that's not why we do what we do.
I hope that in this year's spring senior thesis, John, you can help guide us to some of those things and give us a toolkit. You've already helped us with this software, this eCam.
Let's see. I don't know if I hope it's recording. Otherwise, we'll never do this again. We're gonna check. We're gonna check in about 30 seconds because we got to wrap this up, because we are at 38 minutes. Yeah, and we said 30. Yeah.
Perfect.
Is any parting
John,
words?
thank you for this opportunity. Yet again, you've thought about doing something that pulls us together as a community and helps us express ourselves. So I think this is a great start.
Thank you. That should be fun. That should be good. And we're going to keep this up. Unless people don't watch, then we won't. But people, we'll see. We'll see. They say content is king and distribution is queen. I don't really like that saying. It's a little sexist, personally. They're about even. But we got to distribute. We got to distribute this too. Just making the project isn't enough. You have to push it, right? So so anyhow, we should probably wrap things up. I don't really have. We need some kind of sound. I don't even have a sound. I don't even know what this one is.
I think it's time for Warren's.
Yeah.
How about Warren's trumpet?
Ready?
All right,
Warren, you gotta lead us out here.